Today I want to talk about smoking turkeys. There are two things that kind of stick out in my mind that are problematic whenever you're smoking turkeys. One is that a lot of people tend to go kind of low and slow with it, and it dries out that turkey breast. The dark meat's hard to dry out, but that turkey breast and the skin itself can get really tough and dry, and no one likes that. So I have a few different ways to fix that today. And another problem that I see is that when you cook a whole bird in the oven or in the smoker or anywhere else, you only get seasoning on that very outside and maybe inside the cavity. There's aromatics that might be able to fume the meat from inside the cavity, or people get creative with trying to put seasoning between the skin and the meat. Those are not good options for me. They never really work that well. Then you move on to brining them and injecting them and doing all these things to try and get the flavor in there. So I have a couple different methods for cooking turkey that solve those problems in my view, and I'm going to do them on the smoker today. One is kind of a roulade. It's a turkey roll. It's a completely boned out turkey that is rolled up with the skin on the inside and the seasoning and everything like that. The advantage to this is that you can season all that meat, 100% of it, because it's all facing you. You'll see in a second. And the other great advantage to this is that as you roll that up, you're rolling up the fat and the skin into the inside of this bird, keeping it moist as it cooks. So we're going to do that, and we're going to cook turkey halves, the way I like to half a turkey. Some people like to spatchcock them. Some people like to cook them whole. I like to cut them in half, take out the bones from the inside, the rib bones and things like that, and allow all that to be boneless when you cut it up. So here's a couple of ways to do this. And these are just plain old cheap young turkeys that you get at the supermarket. I don't spend a lot on them. I would rather cook young birds and small ones. If you're cooking for a lot of people, then I'd rather, cook several birds and instead of cooking one huge one. So basically, I'm just taking out all the stuff and drying out this thing. They take forever to thaw. And even these set in the fridge for 5 or 6 days, and there's still some ice chunks in there. So please give yourself plenty of time for these things to thaw out in the refrigerator. This first one I'm doing is the rolled up turkey roll or turkey roulade. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I remove wingtips. They're no good for anything really on a bird. They're just going to burn up. And on this recipe, we're actually going to remove those flats right there also, but we'll do that here in a minute. Basically, what I like to do is get between the joints of these birds and then use my hands to break that joint, and then you can cut it the rest of the way off. You can use this method on almost every joint on a chicken or on a turkey, and they just come right off like that. So basically, we're going to start on the backbone. You can do it on the breast side also, but I find the turkey sets upright nicely like this. So I like to start on the back, and just to one side of the backbone, just slowly start carving the flesh away from the carcass. There's not a whole lot on the back, so this is the part that probably takes the longest because there's mainly, you can see down at the bottom, especially there. I'm getting around that oyster right now, but there's not a lot of meat. It's mainly just skin and bone down there, but you want to keep that skin whole and just use the tip of a boning knife, the tip of a very sharp knife, and just work it away and take your time with it. This is the only part that's really very tedious, and it goes pretty quickly. So you just kind of peel that away nice and slow. Basically, what we're going to be trying to do here is expose two major joints, the shoulder joint up top and the hip joint down below where the thigh enters the carcass. There's that little scapula in there. They are kind of a pain. You got to work around them. They're always in the way. So there you can see I've kind of exposed that thigh joint down there. And then once you get it exposed, you can break it open. And then you just work your knife in there. Sometimes it's a little bit tedious, but just kind of work it around in there and cut everything off. And then you're going to do the same thing up on the shoulder. And then once it's off, you kind of carve the rest of that meat around that back side there off. And see how that leg quarter is separated and it's only connected by the skin? You're going to do the same thing with the shoulder. And once those are both off, you're done. And you move to the other side. Do the same thing. Just pull that skin and any of the meat back off of the bone with the very tip of the knife. And again, you're going to go around those little scapulas right there. They're a pain in the rear. They're always in the way. But you're going to expose that thigh joint just like before. Pop it apart and cut the meat off the carcass the rest of the way around, and then do the same with the shoulder. This is going to look and feel like a mess the first time you do it, but just trust the process. When it's done, it's incredible. And now I'm going to use the tip of my knife and just go around. You can pick either side and just peel that breast meat off of the rib cage. We'll do that on both sides, and then we will have the carcass removed from the skin and all the meat on the bird. See how it just comes across? It comes apart really easily with the tip of your knife. And then just hold the carcass up in the air and cut that keel bone or breastbone off. Be careful here. It's easy to go through the skin on this part because that skin touches the bone, so you gotta be really careful. It's okay if you pierce a hole in the skin. It's just, I do it, and you'll see on here when this is cooked, there's a little hole. It doesn't matter. So there's the carcass removed, and now we have just the breast meat attached to the skin, and then we have the wings and the legs with their bones still in them. So we'll tackle that next. I'm going to go ahead and remove these flats. The two parts of the wings are the flat and the drumette. The drumette's on the left there and the flat's on the right. I'm going to go ahead and remove the flats. I like to cook them separate. It's really hard to bone them out and get the meat and skin off of them, and there's not much there. And it kind of interferes with the rolling it up. It's like these long sleeves of meat that you don't, and skin that you don't really know what to do with. So I just remove them when I'm doing these turkey rolls. And you can cook them separately or put them in stock or freeze them or do whatever you like with them. So on all these bones, whether it's these drumettes or the drumsticks or the thigh bones, I do the same thing, which is I remove the meat from the top large knuckle where I can get a hold of it and get a purchase on it, and then I use the knife and I just scrape the meat off. I'll do this same thing on the thigh bones and the drumsticks. It's really simple. And then when you get down to the very end and all that meat is peeled back off there, you just cut it off. Just put the knife underneath and pull it up and cut it off. Just like that. And we'll do that same process. You see the bone comes out pretty clean. It's pretty much devoid of meat at that point. Whip through the other side real quick, and I do the same thing. Remove the flesh from the top, and then just scrape it down with a knife, and go up underneath it and cut it off. And we'll do the same thing over here. There's that line of fat between the thigh. See right there? Between the thigh and the drumstick. You can always cut right down there, and you hit that joint every time. The same thing on a chicken. If you're wanting to cut the thigh off of the leg. See that joint? You hit it every time like that. So basically, I'm going to get to where I can get my fingers around this thigh bone, and I'm going to remove the meat from the top big knuckle on that bone right there so I can get a purchase on it with my hands, and then we'll scrape the meat down off the bone and cut it from underneath, just like we did the drumettes. It's pretty easy. After you've done one or two of these bones, you see how easy it actually is. It looks like a mess. Like I say, you'll get frustrated and think you're just making a mess in the middle of this, but kind of trust the process and go through it. And you'll see in the end, these always turn out just beautiful. So you see the process is the same on all these bones. Just scrape it down off and then cut it off from underneath. And the drumstick's going to work the same way. There's a little bit of a difference in it. If you've ever eaten a turkey drumstick before, you know that there are these weird little tendons and like splinter pen bones and stuff like that in a turkey leg that aren't in a chicken. There's one in a chicken, but there's several in a turkey. So after you've peeled all this meat down off, just like before, and cut off from the bottom, you'll see that there are these weird little things down there. And if you grab them with your thumb and finger at the top and then pull it out with pliers, it'll pull them right out. You have to put your thumb and finger up there, or it can pull chunks of meat off with it, and you don't want that. Sometimes they're a little hard to get out, and then just cut them out. It's no big deal. Most of them come right out like that. And so we'll whip through this other side really quick too. This seems like a lot of work, and it seems tedious, but Thanksgiving is a lot of work, and when you see the product at the end, I think it's something you're going to want to try. And then again, just hold your thumb and finger up there, and that'll hold the meat onto the bird as you pull those off. And if you ever, like I say, if you get one that just won't pull out, just cut it out with a knife. You could leave them on there, but who likes to eat around that stuff? So here is our bird completely boned out. It is only skin, fat, and light and dark meat at this point. But you see those big voids between the light and dark meat that's just skin? What I like to do is I like to take the tenders off. See how they just kind of float on top there? It's just like in a chicken. I like to take that tender off and put it in that gap from both sides, and that fills in that void there to make our roll more consistent and make it cook more consistently. Just like that. Just push them down in there. And then the only other thing that I like to do is, you can't see from this angle, but at the top, that breast meat up there is actually is much thicker than the rest right there. So I just butterfly it a little bit and make it all the same thickness. It's easy to do. You just kind of cut halfway down in and press it apart. Now that whole bird on that right side is the same thickness, and we'll do it on the left side too. Now it's just going to roll up and cook so much better now that it's completely covered in meat, every square inch of that skin is, and it's all the same thickness. This is the time where you want to remove anything you don't like. If there's a little tenon or a little piece of cartilage that you missed on a kneecap or something like that, this is the time you want to remove it, because we're about to season this bird and then you won't be able to see it at all. So just clean it up a little bit. You can see, if you trust the process, you can see how this is starting to come together. It just, in the middle of it, it seems like you're making a mess, but it's always like that. They're a big, slippery bird, and there's lots of bones in there. So I'm going to use Payne County bird. This is my poultry and pork seasoning. Any poultry and pork seasoning will work well on this. I would avoid sugar. I think turkey is a savory and delicate enough meat to where sugar, I don't think it pairs well with it. That's my personal opinion. So I'd stick with a good salty rub. Something with a lot of herbs in it would be good in this case. Or you could also stuff this. I don't prefer to stuff my birds. I like the stuffing as dressing on the side, cooked in a different pan. So now you can see the advantage to this. We season every square inch of that meat. On a whole bird, you can't do that. And now we're also rolling that fat and that skin and all that connective tissue into the inside of this roast. You can't get it. You can't get that either when you cook a whole bird. And so this stays moist, and all that collagen in the skin turns into gelatin and sets back up in the product, and you have all that seasoning throughout. Plus, it's boneless. This is just a really cool way to prepare a turkey. And then I like to tie it up with butcher's twine. You have to. I mean, unless you have something to hold it in that shape, because it's just going to fall apart. So just get you some cotton twine and tie it up. Not too tight, just enough to hold its shape. Like I say, this seems like a lot of work, and it is, but it goes pretty fast, and it's not hard. Once you've done one, and once you've eaten one, I think you're gonna do it again and again and again. I've done dozens of these things. Everyone loves them, and it's just so moist when it's done, as you'll see. It's just really easy to cook. It's a fast cook. We're gonna be smoking these things at 325 degrees for just a couple hours. And there's our roast. So I'm going to show you really quickly also how to do turkey halves. This is my favorite way to cook like the whole carcass of the bird. I don't like to cook it whole. Like I said, I either spatchcock it, and I'll show you in the process where that is, or I cook halves. Halves are my favorite. And basically we want to cut that backbone out first. You can use poultry shears for this, but you know, where the ribs attach to the backbone is cartilage, so a sharp knife goes right through it. So I like to use a knife to cut the backbone out. Basically, I'm showing you, just drawing a line there on either side of the backbone where we're going to do this. And you cut down through the shoulder, and then you cut through those ribs right there. It's just cartilage holding the ribs to the backbone, so you can take a knife and go right through it. You can use poultry shears also, of course. The trouble with poultry shears are when you get to that thigh joint and that hip joint, you tend to kind of hit the ball of the joint or hit the thigh bone itself, and it's really hard to get through. With a knife, you can actually separate that little joint, just like we did a while ago when we were doing the boning. And you can just see those ribs just cut right off. But with a knife, you can surgically get right into that joint like that and pop it right out. So there's one half of the backbone removed. And then we'll remove the other half and get that backbone out of there. You just pop that thigh joint apart. Cut the backbone off. That's a great soup stock item right there. Now I like to score the inside of the the breastplate down there with a knife, and then just flip it over and push on it, and it'll break right in half, and that'll flatten the turkey out. At that point in time, it would be considered spatchcocked. A spatchcock method of cooking the turkey is just where you do what I'm doing right here, and then you cook it flat and whole. But the same problems persist in that all that breastplate and all those ribs and everything underneath, you can't get seasoning onto the meat. And then when you go to cut it and carve it, there's bones everywhere. So even in my half turkey method like this, I like to take those interior bones out. It just takes a second. So there's a spatchcock, and I'm going to go ahead and halve these. This is the same process, by the way, in my smoking chicken video where I do half chickens. And you'll have to cut around that breastplate down there. It's too thick to cut through. So you just kind of go around it like this. And then we have turkey halves. So you see those rib bones in there and all that breastplate bone and stuff? We're gonna remove that also. And it's going to give us several advantages. The smoke can get to the meat a lot easier. The dry rub will get on the meat instead of on these bones that we don't even eat. And it'll be boneless when we go to carve the breast later. So it just takes a second. You see these things are just kind of floating in there. That whole plate just flips right out of there. It's not very difficult. And you can see now all that meat that we've exposed under there. See, it's just open now. We can get seasoning and smoke all over all that meat. And then, of course, these breastbone parts, I like to remove them too. There's that little scapula. They're always in the way. So cut them out of there too. There's no reason for them to be on there. And then we'll remove like that breastbone up there on top whenever we're done with these on both sides. Rib cages out. Scapula out. And then we removed the breastbones. So here's how I like to cook them. I tuck the wing underneath, and then I just fold the dark meat on top of the white meat, just like that. That's how they'll cook. Of course, we'll season them here in a second, but that's the way I like to put them in a smoker. Again, you just put the wing underneath, and then just roll that leg and thigh quarter up over the breast meat, just like that. And just stick them in the smoker. So we'll season them up. We're going to use bird again, Payne County bird, but like I said before, any seasoning that you choose to use, I would veer away from anything with sugar in it. I'm also going to do a video coming up on cooking a ham in a smoker. And you can really kick up a ham in a smoker with all kinds of glazes and cool stuff. So stay tuned for that. It'll be in the next few weeks. So there we go. The wing is underneath, and then we just flip the leg and thigh quarter up on top of the breast meat, and that thing is ready to go in the smoker just like that. And man, these turn out great. This is a good way to cook a turkey if you don't want to go through the effort of rolling one up like we did before. So I'm going to cook these in a Weber Smokey Mountain today. This is an 18-inch model. They're a medium-sized one. And I like to start off with like 20 briquettes, lit briquettes, and then we'll put them in a pile of a bunch of unlit briquettes. And that usually is about the quantity I need to get it going and keep it going. They light pretty quickly with some oil and a paper towel. It's my preferred method. You guys have probably seen me do it in lots of other videos. And I'm going to show you how I load this up for a long cook. Of course, this is way too much charcoal for a 2.5-hour cook, but that's how you would load it, and that'll go 8 to 12 hours. I mean, it'll just keep cooking. These things are super efficient. So I like to put some oak chunks in there and then put the coals right in the middle. And then I open all the vents up, put it back together, of course, and let it come up to temperature. We're going to be smoking today at 325 degrees, which is kind of a smoke roast is what I call it. Smoke roasting, because we are really actually cooking the bird as fast as we can without burning it. The problem with turkey is it drips when it's cooking, and there's not much inside turkey breast to drip out. So you want to minimize that and cook it as quickly as you can, I think. So we've brought it up to 325. It didn't take too long. These Weber Smokey Mountains are a neat option for smoking if you don't want to spend too much money. I think of this 18-inch model is like $350. I bought this one used online, Marketplace or Craigslist or somewhere. It was $50. I always like to spray my grill grates down with oil and wipe them off. I also put some oil on the outside of these birds. You can just use pan release, it's vegetable oil, but just put some oil on the outside of that skin, and it does help it keep it soft and crispy rather than getting chewy and leathery. And then stick a probe in the deepest part of the thigh, and then we'll put that rolled, boned out turkey roast on top here. Those down there, of course, they're closer to the heat. They'll cook quicker, so I'll take them off first later. But these Weber Smokey Mountains have 2 layers. You can put a brisket and 2 pork butts on here, no problem. And then a probe in this guy. There we go. And then we'll bring it up to 325 again. Basically, I opened the bottom dampers almost all the way, and then I just closed down the top damper a little bit when it hits the temperature, and it's stuck right there at 325 the whole 2.5 hours. I never touched it. So there we are. It was just under 2.5 hours, and we're at 160 degrees on this. The halves that I cooked underneath, I pulled off about 15 minutes before this. They just got done earlier. See that little split in the skin? I told you if you do cut it a little bit, it'll do that. It's no problem. This thing is ready to be taken off there. You see that juice coming out where I pulled the probe out. This is such a juicy way to cook a turkey. I want to get it off there and let it set for just a while until that collagen, now molten into gelatin, and all that fat sets back up in the product. You can see I had a lot longer I could go on this. They're super efficient cookers. So that's what those halves look like when you're done. They're smoked all the way around. The wing is underneath there. So I like to separate the dark meat right here from the light meat. And you can see how juicy it is. That white meat on here is boneless, remember? So now we can carve it, no problem. We just slice it right apart. It's very tender. It's very hard to show you on these videos how juicy this stuff is. But turkey never comes out like this in the oven when I do it that way. I've cooked dozens of them in the oven, and this is just so tender, so juicy, and it's smoked. A smoky flavor. Often smoked turkey, people are turned off by it because it's so dry. But if you smoke roast it like this, it comes out great. The skin pulls right apart. The skin's soft also. Often when you smoke poultry, the skin gets leathery. But if you do it quickly and put a little oil on the outside, then you'll be fine. You can also braise it. We don't go into that today, though. Look at that. How moist it is. That's just the best way to have white meat, in my opinion. And there's the other. See how soft the skin is? And again, since we took those bones out, it doesn't take very long to remove the breastbone and to remove those ribs from inside there. They come right out. Then you don't have to mess with them at all at this point. And you can slice it boneless. And then with the dark meat, you can tell it's tender because the knife goes right through the joint. You got the drumsticks and the thighs, and I'll cut into this thigh a little bit here so you can see how much moisture is retained when you cook them at 325 as quickly as you can like that. See how soft the skin is? But look at all the juice. This is a really good way to cook smoked turkey, these turkey halves. I hope you try it. And it's smoked, so it's delicious. So here is that roulade, or that turkey roll, boneless one that we did first. I'll cut these twines off of here, all that butcher's twine, and then we'll slice it up. And you'll see what I mean about all that seasoning and all that moisture staying in there because the skin is rolled inside the product. And it's just beautiful when you cut it this way and you roll it this way. See how juicy it is? And this has been sitting for quite a while. It's been resting. And then you can slice it in servings like this. Just makes a really attractive product. And it's so well seasoned and it's so moist compared to cooking a whole turkey. There you can see the dark meat and the light meat in there. And then you can, like I say, cut these discs. And the skin is very good. It's all soft, so you can bite right through it. It's a really neat way to cook turkey. So it's quite a bit of work compared to just throwing a turkey in the oven or putting one on the smoker. But look at how this comes out. Look at all the juice coming out of this. And look how soft and tender it is. And it's smoked. It's good, smoky flavored turkey. This is worth trying. In my opinion, you should try it before Thanksgiving so you can get one under your belt before you are put on stage. But they always come out really good. This is, like I say, these are my two favorite ways to smoke a turkey. And I hope you'll try them. Turkey's not all that expensive of a product, and it serves a lot of people. And like I say, if you've tried it before and it's been dry or it's just not been your favorite thing, try one of these two methods. At least try the turkey halves. It's a really good way to prepare a meat that is often very difficult to serve, but that we love to have at Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff like that. So hope you guys try it, and thank you so much for watching. See you later.